Hello and welcome to CyberWise, Cyber Savvy Made Simple, the podcast on a mission to demystify the world of cybersecurity and keep you safe online. We're your hosts, Dan and Estefan. We've got a really interesting topic for you today, but before we get into it, Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thanks, Ace. Looking forward to this next one. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Yeah, today we've got an interesting topic. We're going to dive into the world of BEC, or Business Email Compromise. So yeah, Dad, I'm not very familiar with these acronyms. Obviously, there's BC, BCE, those type of acronyms, but what exactly is Business Email Compromise, or BEC?
So BEC is a type of social engineering scam. It's sometimes known as CEO fraud or business email compromise, and it's a scam where cyber criminals will spoof company email accounts and impersonate executives to try and fool an employee in the accounting department, in the payments department, or in HR into executing unauthorized wire transfers or payments, or to try and send out confidential tax information or information on personnel. So again, it's another way for scammers to convince people to do something that they shouldn't, and they come up and they create emails or messages that look like it's coming from your boss. So there's that authority piece there that they play in, urgent email from the boss to try and get employees to do something.
And Dad, obviously, as the name suggests, business email compromise, does this tend to always be from an external source, or is there sometimes a bit of insider threats coming through as well?
The vast majority is coming from outsiders. Outside the organization, they are spoofing company domains. So it may look like it's coming from the company domain, but it's not. They're coming from different emails, and they're made to sort of look as close as they can to company emails and email signatures from the boss. But the vast majority of the time, it is coming from the outside. This type of thing from inside an organization, for sure, it can happen, but that is insider threat. That's a very clear insider threat. This is more a spoof social engineering, but trying to convince people that you're someone that you're not. So no, it's a little bit different. There is the case with business email compromise where they could actually compromise the company's email system themselves. So they're actually inside someone's mailbox. They've managed to get your username and password to your Outlook account or into your Gmail account, and then they're in your mailbox of a CEO or of a CFO or somebody senior in an organization. If that's the case, they could be sending emails to the accounts department, to HR, from the CEO's actual mailbox, and that's an absolute nightmare. And while that is from inside the company, it's technically not an insider threat because an outside actor is doing that. So if that answers your question. Yeah.
And Dad, you've touched on it quite a bit here, but obviously one type of BEC is CEO fraud, and another example we'll touch on later is a bit about false invoice scams. Is there anything from your experience or any type of scam you've seen the most, or the most common type of BEC out there?
I'd say that the most common type of BEC is using that authority sort of social piece where they try to impersonate the boss, whether it's head of accounts, head of finance, whether it's a CEO. They try to impersonate a boss to put authority pressure on an employee to do something that they think that they maybe shouldn't. So, super urgent, time sensitive. We need to get this payment made today, late on a Friday. It's a message from the boss. So first thing is fantastic. The boss needs me to do something. That's awesome. Let me try and impress. Secondly is maybe there's a scare bit there. I need to do this. Don't want to mess up in front of the boss. Don't want to get fired. Don't want to challenge this because it's the boss man. So they try and impersonate people in positions of authority and executives. So that's definitely the most common that they use there. The invoice scam bit is the other side of it, where they will impersonate a trusted vendor. So, a company that you're constantly paying money to on big contracts or regular contracts and big payments there. These scammers will try and pretend to be that vendor, and they will send messages and emails pretending to be their vendor, saying, reference the invoice we've sent. We've now changed our account details. Please note our new bank account. Please transfer the money into these bank account details. And they'll do it that way, and they'll get caught out. And then they may double tap that. You may have one email coming in from a fake vendor saying, here are new bank details. And then you've got another one backing that up, claiming to be the CEO, saying, we need to get this payment done as soon as possible. Please action this immediately. This is urgent for this big project. And before you know it, the victim employee who has just made the transfer has made a massive mistake and being caught out there. So that's how they play it.
And it's quite interesting that you brought that up, Dan, because there was a recent example here in South Africa where the client was in the process of purchasing a house to the sum of, I think it was 5.5 million rand. And she was obviously working with a legal firm. And what happened was she received a email impersonating the receptionist of this law firm, stating that they had actually changed their account details. And she paid the money into that account with the new thinking it was the right thing to do, but obviously she was scammed. Is this the type of BEC?
It is, yeah. It's a tough one. A lot of the time, BEC doesn't really target the consumer. That's really just more a scam. But for sure, that this is an element of that where, again, they're impersonating a business. They're impersonating somebody, and it's a social engineering scam, whatever name we put on it. But essentially, yes, the scammers somehow knew that she was going through this process. Maybe they were in the mailbox of the law firm. They knew that this process was happening. They knew who this individual was. They put together their scam and their social engineering attack on her, impersonated all the right people that were involved in the process. So they were obviously very well researched into this. They knew exactly what was happening. They knew the right language to use to make it as convincing as possible. They knew the right times to be sending those messages and those emails to their victim, and then pulled it off perfectly, which is obviously very unfortunate to the individual, but it turned out very unfortunate for the legal firm as well. I know the follow-up stories on it, and I don't know if it's exactly the same story, but there was definitely stories of a similar case in South Africa that ended up in the courts where the victim ended up trying to take the law firm to court, because they weren't afforded enough protection. They weren't protected from this. And the courts actually found the law firm culpable, liable, because they hadn't had the right processes in place. They hadn't protected against this. They should have done it a different way. They hadn't raised enough awareness in their client to be careful of these types of scams, and that's why the client fell victim to this. So yeah, big shake-up, big wake-up to the industry there. The need for more information, better processes, and better awareness training.
And then obviously, like you mentioned, the people with access to the most sensitive information, for instance, CEOs, finance controllers, HR. Obviously, they're the most at risk when it comes to BEC. But how does an organization as a whole avoid falling victim to BEC?
Raising security awareness, building secure cultures is key to this. This is one of the biggest threats that businesses are facing today. And so they need to build training programs around it, raise awareness across all the employees. So, your top team, your top executives, those people in leadership roles need to be aware of this, all the way down to the employees in the finance departments and the procurement departments and accounts departments who have authority to make these payments and to transfer sensitive data. If they have that ability to do that in an organization, they need to be aware of these types of scams. Just being aware of how these scams work, the different styles, the different types, what to look out for, all of that is critical to avoiding actually falling victim to them. Secondly, is having the right processes and procedures in place. If you're in the accounts department, there needs to be strict protocols that if you've got a vendor that you pay money into, and those are their account details, and you receive a message from anyone that an account has changed and details of the account have changed, or the way that you pay is changing, there needs to be very clear sort of actions that need to be taken to confirm that. So you need to know exactly who in that vendor to contact so you can confirm that the change has happened. And that needs to either be done by a video call with someone you recognize, or on a phone call, or on a number that is on the system. So you need to confirm. Always be skeptical of changes to payments. And then again, anyone that is needing payments made in an organization needs to go through strict processes. It doesn't matter if the CEO sends you a personal message at 5 o'clock on a Friday saying this is absolutely urgent, we need to get this done as soon as possible. It doesn't matter. And the bosses of organizations need to adhere to that as well. Know that there is strict protocols in place and do not deviate from those protocols. And if there is any deviation, it needs to be reported. And so, bottom line is employees need to be encouraged to report things. If they're even slightly suspicious about something, report it, speak to your boss, send it up the chain, even if it is the CEO and something just doesn't feel right, report it up the chain. Don't act until you get authority to do so. And really that's two of the best ways to avoid falling for these types of scams.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I think that about wraps up this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to stay safe out there. Dan, thanks so much for your insight and for your time.
Awesome, yes. Thanks very much, mate.